Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today for Book Marketing Basics. My name is Angela, and I'm so pleased that you're spending part of your day with me for this session. This webinar is part of a series of free weekly webinars that we offer to writers, publishers, first-timers, anybody interested in working on a book. Every week we cover all different topics related to all the different aspects of publishing, anything from editing, marketing, ebooks. And if there's anything you're interested in seeing from us, please let us know. We're always looking for suggestions, things that authors are interested in learning more about. Don't be shy. Now, during the session, if you have any questions, there is a feature in this GoToWebinar control panel where you can send me your questions. I will keep an eye out for those during the session and take any questions that you have. For the session, I apologize. I'm trying to get that pop back up. And I'll keep an eye on that questions box in the control panel throughout the session so that I can take any questions that you have. Now, today we're going to focus on the basics of book marketing, but if you have any questions about any aspect of the process, I am happy to take those. Again, my name is Angela, and don't be shy. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll keep an eye on the questions box. If you are joining us for the very first time and are new to BookLogix, welcome. BookLogix is a non-traditional book publisher and printer located just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. We work with folks from all different backgrounds doing all different genres of books to help support them in their publishing, printing, and selling process. And all the services that we offer are a la carte. So you can pick and choose whatever you need to best fit your process. We have some authors we work with that just print with us. We have some authors that come to us for the entire process, start to finish. So we are totally flexible. We build the work that we do around what best fits your needs. Now, today we are going to talk about marketing specifically, and I'd like to kind of set the stage for authors of what to expect. I think, unfortunately, in our industry, there are some suppliers who are just trying to take advantage of authors, looking to fulfill the dream. But I think a dose of reality is important. I think there's not enough providers out there giving writers a little bit of a dose of reality of the challenges and a picture of what the industry is like, what you can expect when doing a book. Now, when I give statistics, numbers, the intent is not to discourage, but the intent is to help you understand why something like marketing is really truly so important in part of your process. On any given day, there are anywhere from 4,000 to 11,000 books released each day. So I have a lot of authors that say, well, my book is out, it's on Amazon, I don't understand why it's not selling, I'm doing XYZ. The market is just merely flooded. And that's across all genres. With so many books coming out every single day, you might say, oh, I'm doing a children's book, or I'm doing a romance novel, or whatever the case may be. There's still tons of books coming out that day in your genre. So marketing, really letting people know your book exists, is critical. It's not enough to just have the book for sale. I think a lot of times there's confusion in the industry about availability versus marketing and promotion. So putting a book on Amazon, that's availability. It does not fall under anything that would be marketing and promotion. Now, there certainly are advertising options, but I have a lot of folks that just assume that because their book is available for someone to purchase, it's just going to start selling, and that's really not the case. Now, marketing, unfortunately, like it or not, does not guarantee book sales. You can do all kinds of different things to promote your book, and there is no 100% guarantee that it will sell. But if you take all the right steps, you have created a good product, you've got a better shot at success. So I make silly comparisons and examples when I talk about book marketing. Just roll with me. But really, your book is like a washing machine. Your book at the end of the day is a product. And I think sometimes that's a little bit difficult for authors to kind of stop and wrap their head around, that the things that a company launching a washing machine, a pair of socks, a car, whatever the case may be, any other product, you now as an author, and especially if you are self-publishing, you will actually want to go through some of those same steps and processes to develop and promote and sell what we hope is a good product. So, you really have to treat it like a business, treat your book like a product. And I think that can be difficult, and we'll talk more about that. But so if you hear me say silly things like a washing machine or a bicycle or a car or whatever, when I'm talking about book marketing, that's why. I think it is important to set realistic goals for yourself. Now, obviously, the goal for any author that we work with is they want to sell books, they want to sell a lot of books, they want to be in bookstores, they want people talking about their book, talking about them. Now, on average, self-published books may only sell anywhere from 100 to 250 copies. But what I want you to break beyond that, right? And the way to do that is to create a good product and to promote that product. You know, and I think every author has slightly different goals, but I think ultimately most authors that I work with, they do want to be a bestseller. They do want to have their book in bookstores. I think you can very easily break past that 250 mark if you're going about this the right way. And at the end of the day, you have, like I said, a good product. Now, the thing to keep in mind is this, in most cases, does not happen overnight. This is not a speedy process. Can it happen in some cases? Yes, absolutely it can. But on average, what we see in the non-traditional publishing world is that it can take anywhere from 18 to 24 months of consistent, persistent marketing and promotion of a book before the author gets to that point where they're like, you know, I feel pretty good. I've made it. I'm selling well. People that I don't know are posting about my book on social media, or so-and-so contacted me to interview me for their blog, or, you know, whatever the case may be. It does take time. Now, I will say this, the older a book is, the harder it becomes to get attention for it. So it is important to really, you know, put in a lot of effort in the beginning, capitalize off of the newness of the book, but know that still this is an ongoing process, that if you want to do well, you're really going to have to keep at it. But I think especially in terms of trying to pitch or promote a book to the kind of traditional or old school media, my background originally is in television news. I was a TV news broadcaster, or I'm sorry, I was a producer in TV news broadcasting. And so, you know, often we would get pitches to the newsroom for books. Well, at that point, we're really mainly interested when a book is new, but even more so if there's some kind of a tie-in to a current event, something happening, whether it's economic, political, that kind of thing. But certainly if it's what we would call kind of an older book, traditional media is going to be less and less interested in the book as time goes on. Now, with book marketing, like a lot of things in life, it's not just about what you do, it's about how you do it. So, you know, the engagement level that you are trying to have with your potential buyers, being consistent, you're going to hear me say that a few times, being patient, because again, like I said, this process can take a while. You could be looking at 18 to 24 months, and really keeping at it is very important. You know, not giving up, just continuously pushing. We have had authors over the years, BookLogic started in 2009, so we've been at this a little while. We have had authors that did get frustrated and they hit a certain point where they just gave up. They said, you know what, I can't keep doing this. I'm done, I'm busy, I've got a job, family, whatever the case may be, or I just don't feel like doing this anymore. And then they stop. In some cases, like 6-8 months in, and then you will never know how well your book would have done if you kind of give up. So you really do have to keep at it. Skills that you may need. Now, you may not have to do all of your marketing on your own, but certainly nowadays with social media, it has made the access to an author something that's important for a lot of readers. They want to hear right from you. They want to know, are you the one doing the social media? Are you the one, you know, writing posts and creating content and talking to them? So you do to some extent have to become comfortable kind of being a salesperson, right? At the end of the day, you have a product to sell, whether that's a car or a book or whatever. You do need to be comfortable talking to strangers, talking about your book, telling them why they're going to like it, how they can buy it, that type of thing. Learning the language of pitching, it's tricky. So, and this is with anything that you will do with marketing, whether it's talking to somebody, creating social media posts, there's a balance. You know, you don't want to push too hard on the selling, especially we talk about that in terms of social media. You don't want all your social media content to just be constantly coming at them saying, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book. You need to find a balance of the content that you put out there for people. Technology use. Love it or hate it, you know, nowadays, if you want to try to have a successful book, it's important to become comfortable with a few different things that fall under the technology realm. Now, a lot of people think that means only in the marketing. No, when you work with a publishing support provider, when you work with a book printer, an ebook converter, a designer, whoever the case may be, there's different programs or things they might try to send you or ways they want you to send them things, you've got to be comfortable with your cell phone, a computer, sending files, that type of thing. Basic graphic design, this one's really kind of up to you. I have some authors that are all in and want to do some of this stuff themselves. I have other authors that just want to be completely hands-off and pay some kind of a supplier to do this for them. If you are wanting to do your own social media posts, you are going to want to create some kind of content, maybe memes or things like that, different graphics to promote the book, or maybe you have a book signing coming up and you want to create a flyer or a graphic for Facebook, whatever the case may be. There are programs that can make it pretty easy for you. There's one called Canva. You may have heard of that. So definitely play around with these things. Look, again, at the end of the day, there's folks you can pay for that stuff, but depending on where you need to put your money in terms of your overall publishing and marketing budget, if you're in a position where you don't have the budget for that, you may need to do some of that stuff yourself. Do you have the time in your schedule? It's okay if you don't. Again, there's folks you can pay to help you do certain things, but I do think it's important to make sure you do have some free time for going through the publishing process, putting a good product together, working with an editor, designer, printer, that kind of thing. And then also just to do the marketing and promotion. It takes time. You can do a lot of stuff with no money, but it takes your time. So making sure that you do have some availability in your schedule. And then do you have the financial ability? Again, there's a lot of things you can do that don't cost a lot of money, but you are going to need some budget set aside to create a good product, right? Paying an editor, paying a designer, that kind of thing. And then doing some marketing. Are you wanting to do paid ads on social media, that type of thing? Your job now, if you are in the non-traditional publishing world, is to create demand for your book. Now, there's readers out there. They want to read books, but they don't know about your book. So they don't want your book unless you are creating demand for it. So 95%, in our opinion at BookLogix, 95% of this whole process, from you starting to write the very first word of your manuscript to you hopefully becoming a bestseller someday, 95% of the work, in our opinion, is all falling under marketing. Because you can create a great product, but if nobody knows about it, they're not hungry for it, it's not going to sell. So again, like I talked about earlier, it's not just enough to list a book for sale. That availability is not going to be enough to just start selling books. They say that a potential buyer needs to see or hear about your book 7 to 8 times before they make a conscious buying decision. Now, that is separate from what I call kind of guaranteed sells. Guaranteed sells I would classify as friends, family, your mom and dad or whatever, maybe former coworkers, colleagues, that kind of thing. They are typically what I would define as a guaranteed sell. They are very likely to purchase a book and help generate some sales for you. But those quote unquote strangers that don't know you, they've never heard of the book before, you've got to be promoting this book and getting it in front of their eyes like 7 to 8 times before they really say, oh, I want to buy that book. Now that's again based on existing research. So what is your value proposition? And if you have not heard this term before, that's okay. That's why we're here. A value proposition is essentially it's what you as an author are promising your reader when they read your book. What are they going to get out of it? So when they read that book cover to cover, what are they going to take away? Are they going to be entertained? Are they going to learn a new skill? Are they going to be able to improve something in their life? Whatever the case may be, every genre of book has a value proposition. Sometimes I have authors that say, well, my book is fiction. I'm not teaching the reader something. You're still giving them something, right? If you're writing a romance novel, maybe they had a bad relationship that they just got out of and now they're going to believe in love again. If it's a scary, a mystery, thriller, horror, maybe they're going to be so scared they have to sleep with the lights on for the next week. Whatever the case may be, and I know that's silly, there is still something that you are, proposing to give this reader in exchange for them purchasing your book. So it's very important for you as an author to have a really clear sense of what that is. That's a little bit of your marketing homework at that point. If you come up with a good value proposition, it's almost like a slogan for you to promote the book. So I think this is important to really come up with your value proposition, ideally before you start writing, because as you write, you should be delivering on that value proposition through the course of the book. And that's important. And I think a lot of authors, you know, they're inspired. They have an amazing idea creatively and they just start writing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they finish the book and they want to publish it and they're ready to spend money to do all these things. And then you ask them what the value proposition is and they're really not sure at that point. So again, I think that's really important. The sooner that you can develop that, the better. Identifying your target audience. You know, I've over the years, I started with BookLogics in 2010. I've had a lot of authors say, well, my book is for everyone. And that's great. But it's not the case. And actually, I want you to think 100% in the opposite direction. Do a 180, go the opposite direction. Your book is not for everyone. It should not be for everyone. The more you can narrow down who this book is for, the better. You know, are they young? Are they old? Male, female? Are they, you know, high school education or college education or doctorate or whatever? Where do they like to shop? You know, what format of book do they like to buy? Like, the more that you can paint this picture of this ideal buyer, the better. And even as you write the book, you should be writing with that person in mind. You know, I was born in 1981. If I'm going to write a book and use slang from when I was growing up in my childhood, I need to know that somebody born in, you know, 1999, they're not going to know, right? They didn't grow up with the same things I did. If I'm using slang or giving examples or talking about Saturday morning cartoons I used to watch in the 80s, but I say, oh, well, my target audience is somebody who's 16 years old today, they're not going to be able to relate. So it's very important that even in your writing, it is written for that person that's in your target audience. And I know that's hard to do because, look, at the end of the day, most authors want their book to be for everyone. They want to have a bestseller. They want to think that everyone out there could enjoy their book, but I want you to go opposite direction. So before you start your marketing, and you've heard me say this a few times, and if I repeat myself, I want you to take that away. It means it's important. At the end of the day, before you start marketing, you've got to make sure you have a good product, right? Because like I said, you know, you still could do all these other things, but it starts with a good product. It starts with a book that people will enjoy, people like, that you're getting good feedback on. Now, how do you know? We have a lot of folks that come to us and nobody else has read their book. And they're coming to us and they're ready to publish and they don't know if it's a good book or not. And then you're asking our team, which is great, and we'll give you feedback. But again, that's only maybe a couple people. You know, have you had beta readers, alpha readers, whatever, you know, there's different terms and different parts of your process that you can have folks reading it, but get some kind of feedback. You know, I understand that can be awkward and you're not wanting to maybe post samples of your writing online, but join a writing group. Find a group of people you are comfortable with and get some feedback. And, you know, promise each other that you will be honest. Hey, author, you're kind of in my target audience and I'm kind of in your target audience. Let's trade manuscripts and let's be honest with each other and give feedback. You've got to have something. You've got to kind of know before you start the publishing process, do you have the potential or the makings of a good product? And that's tricky in the non-traditional world. You know, if you're trying to pitch to agents and traditional publishers, they're going to tell you, they're going to be honest with you. But if you are not going to go through that process, you've got to find other ways to get some input and feedback on your product before you get started. Other things that are important before you start your marketing. Do you have kind of quote unquote expert status? So what makes you an expert or what makes you qualified to do this book? Now, it's a little bit harder with fiction books. Certainly with nonfiction, you know, if you're writing medical advice or legal advice or relationship advice, okay, well, are you a psychiatrist? Are you a doctor? Are you a life coach? You've got some kind of a certification or degree or background that you may have, and you make sure you play that up. You know, you're about the author, your marketing, you play up that background and your expertise. It's a little bit harder with fiction books. So sometimes the way to kind of work around that is, well, what is your other writing experience? Can you get endorsements from known writers? You know, maybe there's some other writer that you have a connection to that has sold well and they have a following and they can write an endorsement for your book, that type of thing. So there are some ways to kind of try to cement that expert status. Have you been published in literary journals or magazines or other things? You know, play that stuff up. You want to do at some point, and I know they're not fun. I don't think a lot of people love marketing plans, but it's important. And some people say, well, nowadays, you know, that's old school. You don't need a marketing plan. I still recommend it. I still think you do for a few reasons. One is, I think for most people, it gives them a roadmap. It gives them a starting point. It helps them stay kind of organized and have a plan. There's a lot that's going into this process of publishing and selling and marketing and printing and working with suppliers and all this stuff to do a book, right? So mapping some things out for yourself and having a plan helps you remember all the stuff that you need to do, because you take the time, you do this ahead of time, and then when things start getting crazy and you're afraid you're going to forget something, you just pause and you go back to your plan. The other reason a marketing plan is important is when you want to pitch to physical bookstores. So for any of you that are really looking to have your book on store shelves, a lot of retailers, especially big guys, Barnes & Noble, they want a copy of your marketing plan. You have to remember that the space on a shelf in a bookstore, that's real estate for them. It's almost like the equivalent of a landlord that's leasing out, buildings. The store needs to know that they will make money from your book by giving your book a spot on a shelf. So they want to see a plan. Okay, author, you want us to carry your book, but what are you going to do to promote the book? What are you going to do to cause this book to sell? So I think that's really important. They're going to ask for that. They're going to want to know what is your plan for marketing? What are you doing? Are you spending money? What are the tactics you're doing? All that kind of thing. Who's your target audience? Is your target audience in line with their target audience? That's important for them to see and to know. So I can tell you 100% Barnes & Noble, if you are wanting to have your book carried in stores and you're submitting to the small press office, they want a copy of your marketing plan. So marketing phases. Now, this is something I came up with. I mentioned earlier, I was a TV news producer, and then I moved into PR for a few years before moving into the publishing world. So just from my experience, I break marketing into kind of two phases. There is what I call platform building and what I call active marketing. Now, I define platform building as those kind of quote unquote things that you need to do to set yourself up for success, to establish that you have a good product, you are a professional, you have something in the marketplace that people will like. And then there's active marketing. I define that as really the actual pitching and promoting of the book. So, sending out pitches to podcasters, bloggers, contacting local media, that kind of thing, where you are kind of, you may have heard the term pounding the pavement. You are out there kind of pounding the pavement, saying, hey, I have a book to sell, come buy my book or come read my book. Now, of these two phases, you do not have to do this stuff yourself. I definitely think there are some tactics and steps you can do in each of these phases yourself, but there's certainly folks that you can hire for that too. And we'll talk more about what some of these things are now. So platform building, again, these are things that I would say kind of set the stage. So your website, whether that's for you as an author, for the book itself, I think it is important, in my opinion, to have a website. Some folks nowadays say, oh, I don't need a website. I have a Facebook page. I'm doing social media. My book's on Amazon. I have an author page on Amazon. Those things are great, and you should definitely do those. But I do think, right, Google, if you've ever heard of a little search engine called Google, I do think it's important still to have a site, to have a place if people are searching for your book or searching for you that they may land on. Now, I don't recommend that your website just be a set it and forget it. You certainly can do that, and many authors do, right? They get busy, they don't have time to update the website, or they don't want to keep paying somebody to update it. But I do think it's important to have additional content on your website that you keep updating, and have another reason for potential readers, potential buyers to go to that site. So maybe there's some kind of bonus content. Maybe there's an alternate ending or a tease for your next book or a contest, or, there's any number of things you can do. If it's a kid's book, maybe there's coloring pages that a parent can download and print, maybe resources for teachers or questions for a book club, or again, like you can come up with an endless amount of content. But give them something more. Now, I also think it's really important, and again, these are my opinions, to use your site to build a mailing list. A lot of authors are relying on social media as a way to connect with their audience. What happens if social media somehow goes away, right? A lot of people are relying on TikTok nowadays to sell their product, promote their product. What happens if TikTok goes away, or Facebook suddenly decides that they want to charge you, I don't want to make stuff up. What if they want to charge you $200 a month all of a sudden? And you say, that's not in my budget. Well, then how are you reaching readers? But if all along you have been gathering email addresses and building a mailing list, if that stuff all goes away tomorrow in the social media world, you still got a way to reach out to people. So I think that's important. Now, what you don't want to do is start spamming them and going crazy and sending them too much stuff. I know some companies that I follow, I end up deleting the newsletters or whatever because I just get too much. So you don't want to spam them, but you definitely want to build up that mailing list and hold on to that. Book reviews and endorsements. So there's a few types. There's some you can pay for. You may have heard of Kirkus. We like Indie Reader. There's different platforms, you know, depending on the genre of book too. There's some different paid review services or endorsements. Like I mentioned earlier, maybe there's a best-selling author that somehow you've got a connection to, and maybe they can do an endorsement for you. Or if your book is in the nonfiction side of things, maybe there's some kind of expert, a doctor, psychologist, or, you know, a principal of a school if it's a book for kids or whatever. You know, try to find those people that can do endorsements for you, that are telling the public, hey, this is a good book. This person, this author has important things that you're going to be either entertained by or learn from. Promotional materials. You know, certainly when we went through the pandemic and all the in-person stuff went away for a while, book signings and book launch parties and festivals and conferences, it was hard for a while. But, you know, some of that stuff is back. You know, I don't think things will ever be fully the same, but a lot of that stuff has come back. So having postcards, bookmarks, that kind of thing, flyers, banners. Now, some of that does depend on how much in-person stuff you want to do. But even something simple like a bookmark, that if you are selling the book through your website, that bookmark is tucked into the book and it's getting shipped out to the buyer, that just says something like, hey, if you like this book, leave a review on Amazon. Just little things that you can be doing to help boost up. Awards, media kits. So awards are tricky. You know, watch out. There's a lot of awards out there that are actually run by publishing services companies that are going to then try to sell you services once you submit for the award. You want to look for reputable awards that they're not, and again, these are my opinions, that are not run by companies that are ultimately going to be trying to sell you services. Some awards are known to be reputable in our industry, some not so much. So do your homework and talk to other authors and things. Media kit. This is something that it's a little old school. So it's been a while since I worked in the newsroom when I worked in television, but I think a media kit nowadays, even in digital format, even if you don't have a physical media kit, a media kit, the old school is kind of literally a nice folder. When we do them for authors, we do the front cover of the book, open it up, and it's got different sheets of information in there. It may have a sample copy of the book. So things you typically find in a media kit, a press release, a selling sheet, a bio sheet on the author, maybe like an FAQ or an interview with the author, things like that, that the members of the media can pull information from if they want to report on you in the book. Now, media kits are very helpful for bookstores as well. So if you are walking into a bookstore, or you're going to send your book to the small press office in New York City for Barnes & Noble, media kit is great. It helps elevate you a step up to look professional, that you're serious about this book, that you've got, you know, a good product, that you're really putting the effort in to promote, and it gives them background information that they might need when they're trying to make a decision whether or not to carry the book in their stores. Video book trailers, I feel like I don't see these as much as I did for a while. They were super popular for a while. I feel like it kind of died down a little bit. But I think some of that is funny to me because social media got more and more video heavy. But I think folks are going about it in a different way. What we classified as a video book trailer, I think, has evolved now with TikTok and all this stuff on social media and these short little clips that people do. Essentially, a video book trailer, picture a movie trailer, but for your book. I think where authors make the mistake sometimes that I have seen over the years is they make it too long. Keep it short, keep it sweet. You know, what is this book? What's it about? Why are they going to like it? Where can they buy it? Make sure you're mentioning how or where can they buy this book. That's important. You know, I've seen things that folks classify as a trailer where it's like a 5-minute interview with the author. Those are great. I'm not saying don't do those, but that's not considered a video book trailer. That would be like an author interview video. And certainly put that on YouTube, put that on your website, link it on your social media. But make sure you're then doing a trailer, you know, in companion to that. Sneak previews or reveals, maybe teasing or leaking a little bit of the content of the book to start. So you may have heard of platforms like Wattpad or Publish. I think it's good to give readers a little taste. You know, nowadays, so many books are bought on Amazon, and they do have that feature where you can kind of preview or read a little bit of the inside of the book. But you may want to choose as an author what section to reveal. So the challenge with that Amazon preview feature is Amazon's system is deciding what to reveal, and typically, in my experience, they are revealing, you know, maybe the first few pages of the book. Well, maybe you want to tease them with something a little more juicy that's a little further into the book or whatever. So, you know, think about doing that because folks are not standing in a physical bookstore flipping through the book and getting to cheat and read a little bit of it. You know, in most cases, there's so many books being bought online. There's book-specific social media, of course. Goodreads, you know, keep in mind most Goodreads users are female. Now that makes perfect sense because usually 60% of book buyers are going to be female. But Goodreads, they got bought by Amazon a number of years ago. Library thing is great if you're trying to reach librarians. You want your book carried in libraries, whether that's public libraries, school libraries, that kind of thing. Now we're going to talk about some active marketing tactics. So again, active marketing, that next phase where you are really kind of out there trying to pitch and say, hey world, I've got a book, you know, you might like it, you should buy it. Start by just sitting down and thinking about your own connections. I've seen so many authors over the years that didn't do this to start, and you know, you get busy and you're doing all these different things that are part of this process of publishing, and you don't sometimes have the time to sit and think about something like this, but this is really important. Just sit down, whether you type it, you handwrite it, whatever works for you, and brainstorm. Who are all the connections that you have that somehow can help you with this book? Not just, oh, okay, these are the people that I think are going to buy a copy when the book releases, but oh, these are people that, okay, this person is the HR director of this big company, and my book is about, I'm going to make stuff up, getting along with your coworkers or whatever. You know, so hey, maybe I tell this person about my book, and maybe their company will do a bulk order to give it as a gift to the employees or whatever. You know, oh, I know this other person, they manage a chain of daycares. Maybe I can get my book to be bought in bulk by them to put in the daycare, or you know, whatever the case may be. You know, oh, you know, my cousin's fiance, oh, they work for this popular, you know, online newspaper. Whatever the case may be, there are more people tied to you that can help this book than you realize. Now, it's at your discretion of whether you want to take advantage of those connections or not and play those up or not, but at least just sit down and brainstorm all that stuff. And when authors do this, when we talk to them about this and they take the time to do it, they are usually surprised at who is somehow connected to them that could help their book. So other things that fall under active marketing, pitching to bloggers. So, you know, I have a lot of authors that they get worried and they say, oh man, you know, I'm doing a book, now I got to write my own blog. No, don't do that unless it really makes sense for you, unless that's something you really want to do and you're really going to stick with. Find popular bloggers whose audience, right, target audience we talked about earlier, whose target audience of their blog is in line with your book and your audience. And then you pitch to them. And maybe you offer to write a blog post for them that they can use free of charge because you're sneaking a little promotion of your book in there. Maybe you contact them and offer to do a giveaway. Hey, blogger, hey, podcaster, I'll give you 5 copies of my book to do a giveaway to your followers. Well, then they love it because then they get to do a contest and give something free to their followers. But that's a pitch for your book. All of their audience now starts hearing about your book. So there's definitely things that you can do. Now, keep in mind, if you're trying to pitch to bloggers, podcasters, traditional media, some of them are planning months in advance the things that they're doing. So just know that if you wait until after your book is out, it might be a while before you can line some of this stuff up. Now, don't do it too soon. Like when you're in the editing stage, don't start trying to line up, you know, blog features to go live when you really don't at that point know when your book will release. And there's a long way to go if you're in the editing process. So just be careful of pitching too soon. But I do think it's important, plan it out and don't wait too late because it could still take a few months before they get you into their schedule. If you are going to pitch to anything where you need to be on camera or in front of a microphone, make sure you're pretty decent at some of that stuff. And it's okay if you're not. Look, we're not all good at that stuff. You know, so just make sure you're comfortable that that's something that you really would be willing to do. A number of years ago, we had an author that utilized a marketing firm, and they lined up an interview for him on CNBC. He had a nonfiction book, a business book. We were very excited for him. It was right up his alley. He went through a couple media coaching sessions, you know, and you could kind of tell when the actual interview happened that maybe he wasn't fully comfortable. And I think it's important, you've got to make a good connection through that TV screen or through that audio, you know, if it's a podcast or whatever, that buyers are going to want to know more. They're going to want to follow you. They're going to want to buy your product. They're going to want to hear more, tune in. And I think it comes across if you're not comfortable. But I will tell you this, even if you are comfortable and you're amazing, just know, a number of years ago, I was at a publishing conference, talked to a literary agent that had one of their authors on the Oprah Winfrey show back when she had her show. I think when I was younger, it was like on at 4 o'clock every day or whatever. And they had their author on the Oprah Winfrey show talking about their book, and they were like, we have made it. We are going to sell a ton of books. Hooray. They didn't. They didn't hardly sell at all. So just know that still, even something like that may not be a guarantee, but the more of this stuff you can do, the better your chances, right? Now, especially too, if you are trying to pitch to traditional media, your local TV stations, your local newspaper, the AJC, whatever, make sure that you are trying to tie into current events somehow. What's the hook for them? What's the reason why they should talk about your book, you know, to their readers, to their listeners, to their viewers? You've got a much better shot of getting coverage if you can tie it into some kind of current event. Because I can tell you from working in a newsroom, you know, depending on the newscast, I had either a half hour to fill or an hour, or a morning show was 2 hours. I'm looking for content, right? As a producer or an editor, whatever the case may be, varies of course, depending on the media platform. I'm looking for content to fill that time or that space on a page. But it's got to be relevant. It's got to make sense for my audience. Now, if there's something big going on in the world, elections or whatever, you know, if there's books that tie into those kinds of things, that's great. I love a good tie-in. I can tell you that 100%, having worked in a newsroom, been a producer. So keep an ear on media. You know, always be looking for opportunities to throw in a pitch for your book. Other things that I would classify under active marketing: events, appearances, book signings, and this varies by genre of book. Certainly, if you love public speaking and you have a lot of times a nonfiction book, there may be all kinds of conference opportunities for you to get booked as a guest speaker or be part of a conference or things like that. But just even old school book signings, you know. And I will tell you honestly, it has gotten harder and harder over the years to get booked for a book signing at a physical bookstore. Just again, there's so much competition out there. There's so much demand, so many other authors competing for time and attention. So that's something just to be aware of, that it's a little bit harder. You know, but at the end of the day, you can also just plan your own thing. You could just plan a big old launch party and publicize that and see what kind of attendance you get. And it doesn't have to be at a bookstore. I've seen some really cool book launch parties over the years that were not at a bookstore at all. They were at a theater or a restaurant or whatever, some other cool location. So be creative, find things that tie in with your book. Other things that I would classify under active marketing: ebook advertising and promotion. So of course, you know, in a lot of cases, we recommend an author do an ebook in addition to printed book. Some folks are doing ebook only because they have done the research and seen that for their genre, ebook is the primary format that their buyers are wanting to buy. So things like Free Booksy or Bargain Booksy, we love these at BookLogix. I'm not paid to say that or anything, but we love these sites. They have mailing lists of readers, right? So their followers are readers. So by working with them and promoting your book through them, you are directly tapping into their audience of readers. Free Booksy is for ebooks where you do a free giveaway. Bargain Booksy is for when you put your ebook on sale, and you can pay these guys a fee and they will run an ad in their newsletter to readers promoting your book. Now, what I like about them too is they sort it by genre. So as a reader, I could tell Free Booksy or Bargain Booksy what genres of books I like to read. As an author, you can get in on one of those email newsletters that is specific to the genre for your book. Fussy Librarian's another one that we like, that is, specific to librarians. So if you're trying to reach libraries, public libraries, school libraries, that kind of thing, that might be helpful for you. Social media. So I kind of separate that out. There's a whole lot to it. We could talk for ages about that. And again, if you have any questions or anything, don't be shy. Let me know. Keep peeking at the questions box in case. So I classify social media as falling under both phases of marketing, platform building and active. Because platform building, literally setting it up, right? Putting the information in, creating the pages, putting, your background image or whatever a case may be, a picture of the cover of the book, a headshot of you, whatever. But then active marketing, because you are hopefully constantly posting on social media and interacting with your potential buyers, your readers. Now, I think the most important thing for me to tell you all is that, in my opinion, social media does not necessarily lead to book sales, but I do think it's important. I do think you should do it. But where I want you to relax a little bit, take a deep breath, you don't have to do them all. There are so many social media platforms. I mean, I know for me, I can't keep up. I feel like an old fuddy-duddy sometimes. I'm 44 and folks are using some of these platforms that I'm still not very comfortable with or just don't really care to use. TikTok is just kind of foreign to me still. So it's okay if you don't use them all. What I want you to do, go back to your homework that you did on your target audience and figure out maybe 2 platforms or maybe even 1, right? Start with 1 if that's all you feel that you want to do. Figure out what platform or maybe 2 platforms your target audience uses the most. Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it Pinterest? Whatever the case may be. And focus there. Please do not go crazy and try to do it all. You will lose your mind, you might waste money, you're gonna stress, you're gonna get exhausted. Like, don't worry about that. Figure out where your target audience is. Who are you trying to reach and what do they use? And that's where you put your energy and your effort. Social media is really about, at the end of the day, entertainment and engagement. Like we talked about earlier, you do not want it to just be a sales pitch. You don't want to keep hitting them with, buy my book, buy my book. Go to this store and buy my book. Oh, buy my book on Amazon, or hey, my book, this is 70% off. I'm making stuff up. You've got to give them something more, right? You've got to entertain, you've got to educate. Now, this is going to depend on your genre. You want to do things that you're essentially creating a brand, right? As an author, you and your book kind of rolled together are now a brand. So whatever messaging you're trying to accomplish, stick to that world. If you have, I'm trying to make stuff up on the fly here. If you have, a book about car repair, don't start posting like cat videos unless there's a cat on the hood of a car or something. Like, I'm sure there's some kind of crazy tie-in. The internet has everything, but stay in the world that you have built with your book and things that you think will entertain your audience, but that are still in that kind of messaging that you're trying to convey to them. Now, you do want to be consistent with your posting. So go back to your marketing plan that you drafted for yourself. Or if you haven't, it's okay, it's not too late. And plan out, how often do you need to post? Now, there's all kinds of data on the internet by platform of like, how often should you post, or what time of day, or even if you use some of the platforms, like if you use the business suite, Meta Business Suite, for like Facebook and Instagram, it will literally tell you, hey, for your audience, Tuesdays at 8 o'clock is a good time to post, or whatever. So there are resources for all that. And so you just want to plan out, okay, how often am I going to post? Is it once a day? Is it 3 times a day? Is it every day or every other day? Whatever the case may be. But plan that out and make sure it's doable for you. Is this realistic for you to keep up with? Or do you need help? There are resources out there. There are folks that you can hire to do your social media for you. Make sure kind of, that they're going to do it in a way that it sounds like you. I think that's important. It's got to sound like it's coming from you. But it's about being consistent and persistent, like I said before. You definitely want to engage with other authors. I think this has improved over the years, and I love what I'm seeing now in the non-traditional world. I think for a long time, authors viewed other authors as almost like the enemy, right? And I get that, they're the competition. But is there an author that maybe it's not 100% overlap with your book, but you have some overlap of target audience that you all can promote each other, help each other out, share stuff about each other's books, maybe do a joint book signing. Like, there's all kinds of things that you can do. You want to engage and interact with businesses and groups and pages that are similar to yours. You don't want to spam anybody because you don't want them to be blocked. But I do think it's important to show support for different businesses, groups, other authors, that kind of thing, because hopefully they're going to reciprocate. There are different sites that you can use to help you schedule posts. So I know for Facebook and Instagram, they have their own kind of platform, that business suite, where you can schedule your posts ahead of time. But there's other things out there, Hootsuite, something called Later. You can find all kinds of stuff through Google, but there's different platforms that will help you. So if you're like, okay, I know that for my target audience, I'm supposed to post Tuesdays at 8 o'clock, but I'm working at that time, or I'm picking up my kid from Taekwondo practice, whatever. I can't post at that time. Well, there's all kinds of resources that you can sit down on like a weekend or whatever, or early in the morning, plan all that stuff out, pre-schedule it, and it'll post it for you on the day and time that you set it for. So those are really helpful. Keep in mind, you want to cross-promote the stuff you're doing within your own universe, right? So if you have a website and you have social media, link each one to the other, right? So link your website on your social, link your social on your website, that kind of thing. So so that, potential buyers are finding both things. Social media advertising, there's all kinds of options. Make sure you're trying to target it in some way. If you're doing paid advertising with one of the social media platforms, make sure you can put some demographics in to try to target folks that are within your target audience. Some of them let you break it down by age, by region, by their likes or preferences. So I think that's helpful. Common mistakes that we see authors make with their marketing kind of overall. And if you're like, man, she talked about this stuff already. Again, like I said before, if I repeat myself, I really want to make sure that today you walk away with some of this knowledge, because it is important. Common mistakes that we have seen authors make since we started in 2009, not properly identifying their target audience. You have got to really identify who your audience is. Again, it goes all the way back to the writing of the book, but especially in the marketing. You're going to waste money, you're going to waste time if you're doing marketing tactics that are not going to fit or align with your target audience. Not having a value proposition or not knowing it, again, that also goes back to the writing of the book. You've got to be able to, short and sweet, tell people, what is this book about? What are they going to get out of it? Not having the book professionally edited and designed. Like we talked about before, it all starts with a good product. Please make sure that you have a good product before you make all kinds of investments of money and time and energy into the marketing side of things. And if that means it takes longer than you thought, that's okay. This is a long process in a lot of cases. I know folks get excited, they want to rush, they want to launch quickly, but take your time and put a good product together. Now, what you don't want to do in terms of time is wait too long to start marketing. So some folks make the mistake of waiting to start marketing until the book's already on Amazon. You should start marketing before then. You should start teasing and getting people kind of excited, and maybe doing pre-orders, whatever, that's up to you, but definitely don't wait until the book's already out there. Get a head start. And don't give up too soon, please. I would love to see where everybody's book goes and what happens for you and how many you sell. And you're not going to sell hundreds overnight in most cases. Can it happen? Yes, it absolutely can happen. But it does in most cases. In the non-traditional realm, it takes time. So just be patient. Please keep at it. Give your book every chance that it can have for success. All right, so that does it for the slides that I had for today. I really hope this was helpful for you all. I am happy to take any questions at any point. I understand that folks want to think on things for a bit, so please reach out to us whenever you'd like. You can call the office. My team or I is happy to chat with you. You can email us. And again, too, if you have things you'd love for us to cover in future webinars, let us know. We're always looking for topics and information that's best going to help you all in your journey. Okay, so let's see, we do have, okay, so let's see. It says all the places we should try to pursue that are legit. Oh, is there a place where we list all the common websites? So I can email these slides to you if that's helpful. I'm happy to do that. But if there's something specific, like if you're looking for like, you know, paid review services or things like that of platforms that we recommend, just let me know. And certainly, you know, we're happy to email that stuff over to you. I think other writers too are a great resource. You know, I really, really recommend that folks join writing groups, talk to other authors, see what they've been doing, what they've been using, who they've had a good experience with, a bad experience with, things like that. There is something called Writer Beware. That's really super helpful as well. They have all kinds of resources of things to watch out for as a writer, you know, anything from suppliers to awards, reviewers, that kind of thing. You know, you want to do your homework on that stuff. So hopefully that was helpful. But again, if you think of questions later on, just please reach out. The team and I are real happy to help. We love working with authors. Educating authors is a really big part of our mission at BookLogix, because we really truly feel that the more prepared you are, the more you know about the industry and tips and do's and don'ts, the better chance of success your book has. All right, everyone. I think that does it for today. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me, and hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar.